Good morning, everyone. This is Luda Kopekina with GAI Insights, where we rate AI news essential, important, and optional. Today, I have John, Ankaj, and Adam with a special guest, Pete Blackshaw, who is the CEO of Brand Rank AI and actually a very deep thinker in the AI space, has a lot of very interesting perspectives, and we are very grateful for you to join us today.
You bet.
All right, great. Let's start with, and you could see the articles that we are going to be discussing at GAI Insights/articles. Okay, let's proceed with the first article, Ankash.
The first one that we have for today comes from NVIDIA, and it talks about how NVIDIA is putting Grace Blackwell on every desk and at every AI developer's fingertip.
Yeah, so this is a first of a slew of announcements that NVIDIA is making at Consumer Electronics Show that is going on this week. So what did you think about this particular one, Adam?
I'm really hard pressed not to say this is essential. I know it's not out yet, but people have to start considering at all scales how quickly this is coming and what's going to be possible with it. So what you have here is a $3,000 appliance that sits on your desk like a Mac Mini, and it's the equivalent of 1,000 laptops. This can run a 200 billion parameter model, and they've already confirmed you could chain two of these together and effectively run like a Llama 3 400 billion on your desk, which is just extraordinary compute. And for $6,000, the number of people who are going to be able to develop AI systems at the kind of scale is phenomenal. And even if you're just buying one of these, to have the compute of 1,000 laptops and to be able to run easily, multiple 20 billion or 40 billion parameter models simultaneously, it's going to really accelerate the development of everything in the space. Like we talk about how we're hitting these thresholds in training, we're hitting these thresholds in reasoning and inference. Like there's all of these horizontal ways that this thing can still scale and accelerate, and this is a great example of it.
Yeah, this is incredible, and I can see what's coming. Right, people will sell their memory or whatever. There's massive parallelism, computing parallelism that will happen also. What did you think about this, John?
I'm there for essential as well. I mean, I think we need a new law beyond Moore's law. I don't know if we're going to call it, Jensen's law or whatever, but the speed with which the speed, availability, and volume with which inference is improving is happening way faster than a simple halving of cost every 18 months. It's more like so far, like an order of magnitude, about every 2 orders of magnitude every 12 months, which is, pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
I think the other thing is that the early, developers of the internet, really thought about, folks like Alan Kay, David Reed, and so forth. They thought about organic systems and mathematics. And that's what's happening here, I think. We're having distributed intelligence and incredibly scalable math that is, that's allowing that to be lots of different places. And we're starting to see the impact of that.
Yeah. Pete,
just John, real quick, Jensen from NVIDIA has referred to it as Moore's Law squared and hyper Moore's Law. But you're absolutely right. We need a new term.
New term, right. Pete, what did you think?
Yeah, the term that kept coming to mind with me was enterprise populism. I mean, I always think about NVIDIA with these like big, large enterprises, and I just had never really thought about it as something that, researchers, students, small teams could take full advantage of. And yeah, they've kind of democratized this incredibly powerful platform. And I'm really excited about what the student teams leveraging the platform come up with, even more so than what a Salesforce or other major enterprises are. So I just think it's going to open up, a renaissance of innovation. And I've always believed in, the distributed element of who's, building on these platforms opens up a lot of possibilities. Definitely essential.
Yeah.
Okay. let's put it as essential, even though it's only available in May, but it's certainly worth noting that it's getting there. Okay, essential. Let's proceed, Ankash, to the next one.
Yes. So another interesting development from NVIDIA. So they have launched Cosmos Word Foundation Model platform to accelerate physical AI development, basically a platform for robots training.
Yeah, this is Pete. What did you think, Pete? This is another fascinating announcement.
Yeah, I'd say this is a little bit less outside of my deep expertise. I think it's technologically significant, but maybe less immediately relevant for more consumer-focused branding, which is kind of what I deal with. But I do think it's super valuable for broader trend in automation and the logistics. I'd say it's important.
Okay, Adam? Important. What did you think? Adam,
sorry, I was trying to find my way back to the mute. I was kind of between optional and important. I feel like it's expanding what a lot of people already know in terms of NVIDIA's plans and moving into more of that robotics and simulation space. And it seemed more like an extension or a growth of things that were already happening versus sort of a seismic shift like the last article. But so I was on the fence between optional and important, but I think I could be swayed.
Yeah, I was where Adam is. I mean, I think that, I think this is yet again reinforcing the idea that the emphasis certainly in 25 is not multimodal models, but multi-model modals, right? I mean, it's about multi-models as you look at. I mean, you look at some of the things in here. Is this the one that has the 24 million hours of video gets munched down in like 3 days? It's just nuts. I always think of Autodesk when I do these things, which is their whole motto of read, understand, write, and so all these problems we've had in compute about common sense reasoning and all that, we're starting to just grab the world, digitize it, smush it, have physics models, virtual models, and this is another, and that's then going to drive robotics. This is another move there, but I'm on the fence. Optional, important.
I was important because
okay. Here we go.
I'm very gung-ho on robotics, and I think the ChatGPT moment for robotics is really coming, and NVIDIA sees it, and they've been essentially orchestrating for that moment, and they want to be it, right, in robotics. So this is a platform to essentially enable even further developers of robotics machinery, right, to be able to have very powerful LLMs sitting inside them and interpreting the world very, very quickly. So the latency and the training were the issues, right? And NVIDIA is putting this platform together, and they have been working at it chip by chip, right? And it's happening. So I was excited about this particular announcement because this kind of again brings it together for another advancement in robotics. So I was important. So let's see. We are on the. Can I convince you to go important, guys?
Yes, absolutely. Ankash was saying. Ankash, I don't know if you want to say about what Jensen's saying about physical AI.
Yeah, go ahead, Ankash, please.
So if you see the talk that Jensen gave yesterday, so there was one chart where he showed that physical AI is the next frontier for these large language models or Gen AI in general. And I feel that this particular platform will be a big part of that. So yeah, important from my perspective.
Okay, let's go important. Okay, the next one, please, Ankash.
Okay. So the next one again from NVIDIA. So NVIDIA and some of the partners, they have launched agentic AI blueprint to automate work for every enterprise, basically making AI agents easier.
Yeah, I gave it to Paul, but he is not here. So this is, I'll introduce it and please jump in. I think this is important and maybe essential actually, but certainly important. This is the platform, orchestration platform, to bring pieces to execute agents. And as you see, and Ankash, if you scroll a little on, right? So there are three pieces to it. One is orchestration layer, and they pull in the various things that are really useful to build agents, so the LangChain, the indexing, the various tools that are important for building agents. Then the ability to go structured and unstructured data and keeping it proprietary. And then the ability to go put those agents out there, test them, and then run them. So, and then they loop in Accenture to actually do it together with them. So actually a very thoughtful presentation of tools and abilities to help developers to build it out, build more agents out. So I think important. What do you guys think? Pete?
Yeah, I think it's very important. My first instinct when I saw this was, sending the article summary to my co-founder, wondering if there's anything that might help us accelerate our own startup work. We definitely take pride in creating a lot of agents within a SaaS platform. So I think, yeah, it's kind of similar to the other tool. I do think they're kind of democratizing and simplifying the creation of these tools. I don't think it will be particularly unique. I think everyone's going to come up with these. I think Salesforce will probably have an announcement at the next Salesforce about add water and stir agent creation. I mean, it is, we saw some of this with like apps, but I think NVIDIA clearly has credibility and standing, to do this right. And with really strong adoption, it definitely reinforces that we are in a kind of an agent future. I know that's been a bit speculative, but I do think it's becoming real, and I'm seeing the benefits myself as a developer of AI apps.
Okay, John, what did you think?
Yeah, important for all the reasons that have been said.
Adam, important, okay?
Yep. Support that.
Okay. Important it is. Let's proceed, Ankash, please.
Okay, the next one that we have is a white paper from Google on agents.
And Ankash, I noticed that it's September, right? Was it just released or we didn't see it until now?
Luda, I think it was released publicly just last week.
Okay, that's why it's dated September, but they've been working on it. Okay, great. John, what did you think about this?
Yeah, I thought this was important, maybe essential. I've been chirping about the fact that, what is the definition of an agent, how's it different, and so forth. And I think this does a very good job of, laying out what the models are, what the extensions are of that, how, a model is different from an agent, and then, all the way down to functional sample code, right? So you've got this notion of orchestration and tools, and an agent basically being able to sense its environment, take action, and then having tools to be able to render either facts or intent back to the agent. So something like a nice example in here about, for example, if somebody said, I need a flight to Phoenix. Well, if you're going to use an agent, you need to query from where to Phoenix, right? Because, and so that's the idea of a tool goes out and either interrogates the user or figures out where you are, can I use this location, that kind of thing. So it's, from Chicago to Phoenix. I thought it was really good, and I thought very simple, in terms of which I think is important here, right? It's the beauty of it's like the old thing about sorry, I wrote such a long letter, I didn't have time to write a short one. I think I think simplicity is hard, and I think they've done a good job here. So I was important, maybe even essential. I mean, this is Google Vertex, and I think this is transportable as a set of concepts across any environment. I think the frameworks and the primitives in this new realm are going to be massively important. And so for me, at least important, maybe essential.
Yeah, it's almost like a primer. It steps you through what you need to do, what the agent needs to do, and think about what the elements of wisdom and where the source of truth is and the like. So it's an interesting primer. What did you think, Adam?
And can I just add, Luda, also it goes across representation. So
Correct.
you have the description of what you're trying to get done, you have the model of how to think about it, and then you have the code.
Yeah.
And that's really, it reminds me of things in early telecommunications like the ISO stack, the 7-layer communication stack, or some of the early stuff that von Neumann did about the nature of the von Neumann architecture. I mean, we're starting to get to an agentic architecture here, which is important.
Yeah, totally. Adam, what did you think?
Well, I think maybe it was Pete on the last one was saying about the agentic blueprints that we're probably going to see a lot of announcements from a lot of people doing this sort of thing, and I think this is another example of that. Google won't be the only ones. There's a lot of great information here. I absolutely agree. It's important. I would hesitate to call it essential because just for that very reason.
Yeah, Pete. Okay, with important.
I would side with John and kind of push it towards essential, because I think this is the first time I've seen a white paper by an industry leader that really tried to bring some definition and clarity to what this means. I mean, people are throwing the word out, agents, like peanuts in a ballpark, and I'm not sure people really know what it means. And again, this is not a one sentence framework, but it does drive some very important clarity. And I certainly feel a lot smarter. And I think we continue to grow and validate the industry with, some alignment around what things mean. So I think this does a great service, and I owe myself time to read it a little bit more deeply. But I do love the fact that it's so simple. I almost feel like they put it through ChatGPT and said, make it Sesame Street simple. And I think that too is a service, because we generally tend to lose audience with our tech gobbledygook.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah.
The good ones we've seen came from LangChain, and they explain it quite well as well. So there were several already, and this is slightly promotional into Google space, right? They use Google tools. So that's where my hesitation would be. Yeah, John, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think that back to our AI leader, I think our AI leader needs in their pocket. I can just see somebody in a meeting saying, what the heck is an agent anyway? And they need an answer that, is clear and easy to understand. And this, of the ones we've read so far, this was the best, in my opinion. That's why.
I think they're dragging us in.
Essential.
Adam, they're dragging us in. Would you?
Come on, Adam. You can do it.
Luda's got the chalk.
I know, but I was going to defer to you. What did you think? I am reluctant to go essential on this one. I am more important.
I'm holding my opinion at important.
It's good.
2 and 2. Ankash, what do you think? Let's break that.
I will go with John and Pete. Luda.
All right.
Essential
All
for
right.
Essential it is.
Here we go.
Let's proceed.
Luda, you have to think more like the papacy, ex cathedra, when, the Pope is infallible on things of canon law, has to sit in the chair of Peter and lay down the law. There you go.
But we got it, right? All right. Let's go on.
The next one comes from HBR, and it talks about how consumers don't want AI to seem human.
This is a fascinating, interesting angle on this whole thing. All right. Pete, what did you think?
Yeah, I had mixed feelings about this. I mean, rationally, it made a lot of sense, and some of it was survey based, and I do a lot of that. But I'm also mindful that what consumers say in surveys and how they really respond to stimuli is just different. And I do think that, the whole ad industry is based on the power of sight, sound, and motion. People don't necessarily ask questions about is it real or not. It just works. And so I do think I think it's a fair watch out that I think there will be a little bit, it's fake, and you get turned off. It could be, but I still think, is customer service better when you have a smooth voice? Is an FAQ better when you've got even a automated video bot explaining it to you? Do you get more points in the eyes of the consumer? hell yeah, I'm doing that myself. I'm doing a Pete bot, and my clients are super grateful that I'm explaining things, and they like looking at me. And so, and I do disclose. So I don't know. I think we need a little bit. I think it was a little bit overly simplified. It's very easy for people to reach that conclusion, but I think the truth is much more complex, more work needed. I think it's an important read, but again, I don't think it's definitive yet.
Yeah, so the argument here, maybe we stated here, that the more you explain how a sophisticated AI tool has come together, and there's a lot of human work behind it, the better the consumers embrace it. Kind of this whole argument of the article. John, what did you think?
Yeah,
So
I was.
Pete is going important on this one.
Yeah, I was saying important that I have the same concerns Pete does, which is, what's that wonderful book that talks about what people actually search for on Google, not what they say they search for. And I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of that in any consumer interaction. The other thing that I think this notion that, hey, at this juncture, 2025, early 2025, that a majority of folks would want to know that there's a human in the loop somewhere, and that I can believe that kind of. I wonder how long that'll last, because I think that's a transition issue, because the kind of places to look would be places like the Pete bot, and also certain areas of sports that have way more virtuality, pornography. Like what is the what's the relationship on those kind of deep amygdala things? And I'm not convinced that there needs to be a human in the loop on that. In fact, there may be all kinds of funky stuff going on. The fact that it's not a human, is actually a good thing.
Yeah.
So, I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, right now, so I think it's important to really put tone and let me put it this way, to deconstruct the idea of anthropomorphization. That's a big bucket that we're going to discover there's a lot of things underneath that. And this is, for me, the first exploration that actually takes at least one facet of that and starts to decompose it.
Yeah, I thought it was good to flag it as important, because for a lot of brands, right, and engaging consumers, that's important to think about this, whether you want to take action or not. Yeah, so I was important. What did you think, Adam?
I was optional. I was leaning more towards Pete's side of the fence. John does make a good point that even if this article I might have felt was optional, it's one of the first forays into the exploration of this, and it is an important subject. I particularly didn't appreciate at the end where they have this, the bold declaration of the path forward. And I just felt if I were an AI leader reading that, I would be left with, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do with this. And that kind of left me with a bit of a sour note on it. But I could certainly support important, because it is an important subject that needs to be explored further.
Okay. All right. Let's put it as important and see what happens, right? And how much back we get. Okay.
Yeah, I think our friends at Colaberry also make an important point here, which is this notion of how does trust, what's your Turing stance, right? Do you tell somebody that they're dealing with a machine or not, and when? I think is an interesting question.
It is, and that's this whole topic brings it into thinking, right? And how do you deal with it as an AI leader? So it's an important topic. So I think it's good to put it in important. Okay, good. Let's go on. Ankash, please.
Okay, the last one that we have comes from AWS, and they talk about how London Stock Exchange is using Amazon Q Business to enhance post-trade client services.
Yeah, this is one of those cases lacking the specific numbers of impact, but a good definition of what the problem they had and what they actually did about it. Adam, what did you think?
And in spite of the many great use cases we've seen out of Amazon lately, I gave this one a pass. I considered it optional. We've actually already seen back in November a much better, I felt at least, illustrated use case on Q Business specifically. It wasn't the same use case, but it gave you clearer idea without necessarily going too deep or complex around how the architecture works. I just felt like this was lacking a little bit, and the use cases that are there are fairly pedantic. Knowledge-based integration, Gen AI assistant, improved customer support. So I thought this one was optional.
Okay.
Yeah.
Optional, Pete?
Yeah, it just felt like one of those last minute Salesforce, Dreamforce use cases where you felt like they were just trying to fill the pipeline with something from nothing. And so it was interesting, but it was like, so what? I mean, I think that there's so much more interesting stuff out there. So it was just the march of innovation or efficiency, but it didn't knock my socks off unless I didn't see something there that, others might.
Yeah. Okay. No, I think it's optional. Okay, let's go optional on this one. And there's a note from Chris Brock agreeing with what we've said, that this is an important topic, but it might change as we go. Deconstruct. Yeah. The underpinnings. So we'll have to see. Okay, so we have today a very interesting day. Adam, you changed the streak. We were going essential and important, and then we got an optional. So we have 2 essentials, 3 importance, and 1 optional. Woohoo!
Yeah, there we go. Big news day, not surprising, with CES and NVIDIA leading the back there.
Yeah.
Hey, one thing, I know we've got a couple minutes. Pete, can you just tell our audience a little bit about, kind of what you're up to and what the top, we've got about 3 minutes here, or 2 minutes. Just kind of, I think the work you're doing is just spectacular. So if you just share a little bit.
Yeah, it gets more interesting every day. We've got about a dozen clients. We're basically measuring what AI engines are saying about them, and we're learning a lot about just how each of the LLMs think, their biases, their values, their preferences. I put out a post yesterday that some of you may have seen, where I did like 20 or 25 just basic queries about what's happening at CES, and then I tabulated all the sources that they cited. And it was really interesting because there were like it was interesting by who was not given attribution, and there's this whole catch-22 in LLM data aggregation in terms of do the content sources want to be exclusive, or do they want to be visible? And so you had players like Tom's Review were at the very top, but the New York Times wasn't there. The New York Post was very visible, but you had Fast Company was nowhere to be seen. But I think it's going to be really interesting just looking at who builds into these language models and how it impacts the output. And now that ChatGPT is a lot more transparent about sources, you can do a lot more interesting analysis. But these things may very well impact who marketers put their influence on, like which articles do we want to get, because it's going to bleed into the LLMs and ultimately give us favorable standing. So that's the type of work we're doing, and it's just really interesting. And with every new announcement from an LLM, our team almost has to pivot to figure out how to make it work, as we're doing now with platforms like Amazon Rufus.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting. You take the roughly $1 trillion in advertising that's spent, and the vast majority of it, 2/3, 3/4 is nonlinear, right? And that's all getting rewired. So I just think it's fantastic that you're sitting right in that river of cash and influence. That's I think it's going to be a big funding mechanism for the redo of the entire tech stack of the world. So
So Pete, what do you see as happening? How this SEO engine going to be rebooted?
Well, I think I did a big article about, search is dead, long live search, but it was more answer engine search. And listen, it's definitely pivoting. All of our research, and of course, all of us instinctively, I've even put out a poll on my LinkedIn page asking how many people, used AI to search for products or to understand how to use products. Because I do think LLMs are 100 times better than brands at explaining how to use products. And the numbers are just really incredible. Again, 2 years into the AI revolution, and like 60% of consumers are regularly using these engines as part of the product decision cycle. That's a lot of, market impact. And so, and I'm telling brands, like, everything you do should have an eye towards improving your standing in answer engines. even on, I mean, shame on any brand that drops $6 million for 30 seconds on a Super Bowl ad that isn't building ancillary content to answer every conceivable question that a Super Bowl ad might spark. So how do you think about this in a very, very integrated way? You'll hear more from me on that soon.
That's
Wonderful. Well, thanks, Steve. Lovely having you here.
Yeah,
Thank
great. I love what you guys are doing. Forces me to really think and go deep.
Okay, well, thank
But
you.
do hang around, Pete. Don't
Okay,
leave
will
yet.
do.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everyone. See
Bye-bye.
you tomorrow.